Hi, my name is Matt Ludt. I'm one of the attorneys at Atticus Family Law. I've been practicing since 2003. In fact, I founded Atticus Family Law in 2013. And as a 44-year-old, I have the arteries of a 74-year-old. I know, that sounds weird. Because why is that in a video related to a law firm that does family and divorce law? There's two reasons I'm mentioning this. One of it has to do with working with Atticus Family Law in whatever type of case you have. And then the other bit of it is going to deal with health as it relates to divorce. Now, recently I decided that at age 44, I wanted to be age 88 someday or more. And so I took the advice of a friend, met with this particular doctor who did a deep dive, gave me a fat report. They took 17 vials of blood and a urine sample. They analyzed it all and they went through it. And it turns out that I got great kidneys. I'm at no risk for diabetes. My liver's good. White blood count is great. I don't have, my thyroid's good. My iron metabolism, a bunch of stuff like that is good. And then there's the bad news, which is in addition to my high blood pressure, which I've had going back to law school, that's still not necessarily in a good place. I've got a bunch of other inflammation markers and a bunch of cholesterol. And so thus the arterial, they did a sonogram on my neck and the carotid arteries, came back with the black and white, looked like x-rays, and you're actually able to see the plaque deposits, which is why I get to say that I have the arteries of a 74-year-old. One of the things the doctor did for me after I met with him is he gave me a series of videos to watch. It's like 79 videos, I think. Anything from a minute to 10 minutes. And it's like the leaders in the field on arterial health and what goes into it. All the root factors, everything from brushing your teeth poorly or not having good oral hygiene to stress factors to genetics. They go through it all. And it's really interesting, and I'm learning a lot. But this is where the first part of this comes in as it relates to you watching this relative to the services of Atticus Family Law. I can imagine that my experience interacting with the doctor, doing the deep dive with all my numbers, would have been so much better if the circumstances had been reversed. And in hiring his services, he'd had me watch those videos first. Now, granted, they're taking me time to get through, and so there's some consideration as it relates there. But it's so much better to have been, it would have been so much better to be educated on those things so that when I sit down with him and we're talking about my vitamin D levels, we're talking about this little thing that talks about the degree to which how permeable the walls of your arteries are to allow plaque to get in there and build up. And those measurements that they did, it would have been so much more meaningful if when I was talking to him, had I seen the videos first. Now, Atticus Family Law, we work a little differently. We have a number of resources before we get to consultations and before we get to our strategy sessions where we want to make sure that our clients get educated on really what it means, what factors the court considers in custody matters, parenting time, child support, when it comes to divorces, how assets, debts are divided, how spousal maintenance is calculated, when we're dealing with modifications, what goes into those motion practice, and the other areas, whether it's restraining orders, orders for protection, grandparent custody, step-parent adoption. We want to make sure that you're as well educated on this as possible, which is why one of the things we do for all of our clients in Minnesota is we give them a copy of our Minnesota Family Law book. Also, we are working on one for Wisconsin, but we also have some other tutorials that we give to our Wisconsin clients that'll eventually make it into the book. But right now, they're just PDFs that we provide. But ultimately, when we sit down for that strategy session, that is the first thing that we do after a client hires us is we want to talk through what the options are, exactly what your objectives are, the various possibilities as to how to accomplish the various goals you have, whether that's getting it done fast, getting it done right, staying within budget, considering the impact on the children, worrying about the future relationship with what might be your soon-to-be ex, all the various considerations that come into mind, let alone your actual objectives of a fair resolution and enough cash flow to make your ends meet, and really doing something that's focused on what's best for the children rather than necessarily what's convenient or some of the other things that distract us. When we get to that strategy session point, we want you as educated as possible. We want you to have done the equivalent of watched all the videos before you meet with the doctor. And so that's one of the things that we bring to the table is we really want to make sure that that happens. And then as we go along and we need to tweak plans and make changes or whatnot, it's good that our clients have read the books, read the parts of it that are relevant to them, learn from them so that they can be just as mindful of why certain things are changed and recommended, let alone when you get to the end where something like 90+% of these things are resolved by negotiation, at least in part. And we want to make sure that you're well educated on what all these things mean so that when it comes to tax considerations or the intricacies of future modification or the permanency of, say, like asset division, knowing that you can't go back and change it later on, that you're well educated so that you're making a knowing agreement to the final terms. Now let me hit upon the second part. If you're watching this and and we're moving forward with a divorce action, be it in Minnesota or Wisconsin, one of the first things we're going to want you to do is go in for a checkup with your physician. And maybe your last one was 6 months ago and you do them annually. We're going to have you do one early. If you haven't been in a while, great. This is a win-win situation in most circumstances. First off, the first win is just another checkup is probably a good idea. You want to make sure that all of your numbers, as much as possible, are in good working order, and basically that you complain about every little thing to the doctor to see if the doctor wants to do anything with it, because your health is important. Your children are going to be depending on you. You're not getting divorced and trying to work for a fair outcome so that you can make it another 6 months or 2 years. Like you want a future that we're going to help you rebuild and transition towards, and we want you to get the benefit of that. But the other win is this: if the doctor finds anything, now at the beginning of your divorce is when we need to know, because if you're dealing with a spousal maintenance issue, whether you're looking to receive or you're being asked to pay, one of the factors that really is considered is each party's health. And if it turns out that you've got 70% blockage in your heart arteries, and all of a sudden you're going to be put through a lot, perhaps your high-paying job is high stress, and the doctor's saying you keep your job and you'll die soon, or you change your job and you'll live a whole lot longer, then it really makes a difference as it relates to your ability to pay spousal maintenance, right? Or alternatively, if you've got other issues, maybe you've had some rheumatoid arthritis that's now getting worse, and all of a sudden you got a much bigger diagnosis than ever before. You didn't really think it was getting worse, but now all of a sudden it's going to severely hamper your ability and you're going to need a bigger spousal maintenance claim. That's one of the things that comes into play. Another bit is this sort of treatment takes money or debt, right? So before you go dividing everything in half with your spouse, if there are necessary medical expenses that need to be paid, we want them to be paid, and so that arguably the same marital union that served you for these years, that allows you to have either the cash in the savings account or the ability to borrow against a 401k or do an early withdrawal or whatever it's going to take to pay for what needs to be done, that should very well pay for your current health before we go dividing everything. And same with debt. If you don't have those resources and you end up having to incur some medical debt, then we want to treat that as marital so that it ends up being shared by both of you instead of you just getting saddled with it at the end. And lastly, as it relates to, maybe it's not the straight up direct correlation between your health and what we do with custody and parenting time for the children, but obviously we want to make sure that if there's something that would curtail your ability to care for the children in the years to come, maybe you've got some onset of fibromyalgia or something, and that's only going to make you more unavailable to play with your small children, support them, maybe even drive a car and get them places when they're older, before they get into their teen years and just do their own thing. Again, another time to be dealing with this now, outside of the money considerations of who gets what or spousal maintenance claims, but just on a custody and parenting time aspect. And the health of the parties is one of the other factors that are addressed in dealing with custody and parenting time. So whether you're in Minnesota or Wisconsin, at the onset of your divorce, we really want you getting in, seeing your doctor, and making sure that you've got as clean of a bill of health as possible. You don't end up with all the red marks that I've got. And if that's the case, great. That's a copay well spent. If there's something else, you're going to be glad you know now, rather than in a handful of months after everything's done and you're footing the full bill for it all, or ending up with some rude surprises. So again, my name is Matt Ludt with Atticus Family Law. Thanks for watching this, and we look forward to working with you throughout the entirety of your divorce or whatever sort of other matter you have, in making sure that we can help you successfully transition from where you are now into a successful future, and avoid those pitfalls that could come about if you don't handle this family law matter as well as you want and as well as you need to for a great future. Thanks for watching.